Hi, this is Pat Moorhead, and we are here for the Hot Desk Podcast, episode 9. I'm here with my incredible co-host. Actually, I'm the guy like teeing up the questions, so you're kind of the host. You're the subject matter expertise. Melody, how are you? My gosh, you're on the road doing
I
your
am,
best interpretation of super analyst. How are you?
I am,
Where
uh,
are you right now?
I am in Mountain View, California. This is, I think, the fifth city I've been in 6 days,
Yes.
and I've had a great week. I mean, it's been so busy. We're going to talk about all the things, but yeah, it is. I have definitely had, what you say, hashtag analyst life this week. Been on lots of planes, been in lots of events, seen lots of new products, lots of AI, lots of new announcements. We've got a ton to talk about. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've been home and it's my second week. And it's I was on a
Rare.
5 week tour and then home for 2 weeks. So I'm on the road for 6 weeks. So this is going to be tough. So I'm on the road from Wednesday to Thanksgiving. So
Wow.
coming up, just
Yeah.
getting rested. You go to the doctor's appointments. You do all the things you can't do when you're on the road. But no, I mean, I'm glad to be here. And by the way, if you're new to the Hot Desk podcast, I first have to ask you, what's your problem here? Like
Where
why
have
haven't you
you
been?
been?
But we're very glad to have you here, and we're talking about what you might expect. Talk about the next new normal in modern work, all the tools, all the trends. Are they hot or are they not? We are going to talk about some publicly traded companies, but don't take any of this as investment advice. We think we have a great show for you today. I mean, even Mel being on the road, we have enough time to basically squeeze in everything that happened this week in modern workplace. So yeah, Ceridian had their event, Zoomtopia, which you were live in. While you were at Zoomtopia, you were tuning into SAP SuccessConnect, and then you went to Palo Alto to meet the awesome HP folks. So yeah, let's dive in. Let's talk Ceridian insights, and maybe just tee up who is Ceridian and what do they do, and what did they announce, and why does it matter?
Yeah, so Ceridian is a human capital management platform. They have several different products. But Dayforce is really their main software product,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what they're known for. And I think they had a little bit of a branding, not really a problem, because I think both brands, both the Ceridian brand and the Dayforce brand, are well known within that kind of human capital world, what I now kind of refer to as people tech, because there's like employee experience and human capital management, and then there's payroll, and to me, it's people tech.
Yeah.
So, but
I love how you simplify things sometimes. I'm just like HRM,
it's
HCM, SCM, ERP, but no, it's like people tech. And that
it's people tech.
takes that plus things like Vivo and Work Vivo and
Yes.
all the other. And I love that.
Yeah. So they've now just kind of consolidated, and their rebranding is Dayforce. That's really what they're known for. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's the Ceridian Dayforce. Well, is it Dayforce? Are you using Ceridian? Is Ceridian the client? So it's really simplifying it and kind of relying on the brand that they're best known for, and those are the products that people are really using. So Dayforce is the software solution. And now they've introduced Dayforce Copilot. So Dayforce is one. Yep, of course.
Are you sure? Of course it's a co-pilot.
Of
Okay.
course, it's a Copilot. But Dayforce is also really where their data lies. So it's also where their wallet solution is. And so the Copilot really makes sense there. It's where the payroll is. So to just consolidate everything to Dayforce really makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
Dayforce Wallet is actually how I first was introduced to them, because when I was really just kind of focusing on fintech, it's a really great solution that offers on-demand pay, um, basically not having to wait 2 weeks to get your paycheck. And I talked to the CEO, David Ossip, at the event, and really, when you think about it, I mean, just from the economy standpoint, pay is so important right now. But the way that he explained it was really interesting, and is that the construct of the pay period came from the automation of payroll, because you have to capture and aggregate the data. Well, now, that's was with batching and everything, and that's no longer
Yeah.
necessary, but we still have this 2-week pay period. So, throw into that everybody's focusing on employee wellness and control and financial health, and they're eliminating things like credit card fees and check cashing charges and payday loans, and companies are seeing a higher retention. It's definitely a recruitment strategy. And one thing I found really, really interesting, one, they just hit the $2 billion mark in processed earned wage access, which shows it's very
Yeah.
popular.
Growing.
But the thing I thought is so interesting in it is not just the hourly employees that you would think like, oh, they need to use it because they're running low on cash or whatever. They have really high earners using it. These are people who they're smart with their money. They don't want their money sitting in somebody else's bank account for 2 weeks. Why would you? You have liquidity issues. You want to buy something, you want to invest in something. Why wait 2 weeks, especially if you've got a big paycheck? That you're letting that float sit in somebody else's bank account. So it's really smart, I think, the way that they're doing this. So we don't have a bunch of time, but want to just get to kind of some of their platform stuff on Copilot. So they've got just kind of the AI natural language processing for Dayforce talent, for HR
Yeah.
service delivery, autonomous payroll, all of these things that just will kind of help HR people do their task kind of jobs done to focus more on the people aspect of it. So they've got a
Melody, when the whole generative AI thing kicked off, I tried to compare and contrast jobs or sectors that would be impacted most. And there's only two ways to arrive at a conclusion. One is additive, and one is subtractive. Or
Mhm.
is that a word? I don't know. If it's not, I just made it up.
Yeah,
But one way to look at it was kind of Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and Web 1.0, right, hit travel agents, stockbrokers, things like that, and two was kind of e-commerce and also media, so retail stores with Amazon, and then um, media with record stores, CD stores, and VHS, and healthcare really wasn't impacted. ERP and CRM really was redone when SAP came out in the 90s. So I like to view this generative AI as it's the sea of cubes that it's going to impact.
mhm,
Um, Human resources, accounts receivable, accounts
yes,
payable, customer support. I also think it's going to transform the legal and medical industries, but slower because they're just so much more regulated.
yeah,
But if you think about it, the ability to go in and I really got um, IBM CEO Arvind Krishna came out and said, "Hey, we've actually been able to, with an 80-degree certainty, through our chatbot that we created internally, be able to answer 80% of the HR questions
yes,
accurately." Right? And that was just kind of a, oh my gosh. So, the knowledge bases are terrible. Gen Gen 1 chatbots are terrible. And I can imagine how much action that Ceridian is getting off that. Now, in their case, it's more about offering this as a service, but you can imagine the value that can bring to enterprises. The second thing I think of is data and how to keep it away from somebody, right? I mean, HR data, you have age, you have pay,
yeah,
you have, hey, have they been on a PIP before? Has
right,
address, like this information that everybody has to be parsed, just like they were in their current systems, that only a certain amount of people can get access to a certain amount of data.
mhm,
And by the way, without even, maybe you can confirm this for me, even with generative AI, there's based on login into Dayforce, it um, keeps those flows separate, right? So a person can't go to the chatbot and say, "Hey, how much does Philip Moore make
right,
per year?" And I know that's a really simple example, but keeping the data away from people who aren't supposed to get it was probably a highlight of this. Or
yeah.
no new security. It's just going to be based on the current authorizations and authentication that people have today.
Yeah, and I think a really good way to explain that is like there are fact-based things and then there are sort of prose-based things where if you ask it a question and some, yes, these are facts, but they're sort of fluid facts, like what's the HR policy for leave? How do
Yeah.
I, so these aren't necessarily fact things where it's like, oh, that has to be protected because that's your personal information, or that's like relegated to this one particular, or even, if we're not even talking about HR, we're talking just about enterprise data. You don't have permission to access that. Those are fact-based things. But when it's just this kind of data where it's almost like asking somebody down the hall, like, what do
Yeah.
I do if I need to take off early today to go pick my kid up from, school to go to the orthodontist? How do I submit a reimbursement for this? It's my first trip. Really easy things that it just takes away the complexity for the HR people, but also just makes it really simple for people to find information because we're all working from different places on different time zones. You don't want to wait till tomorrow to get an answer. So there's all of that sort of like conversational stuff that can happen really easily with AI, that they're making it really simple, and having those kind of lockdown parameters on all of that other information, which is the fact-based information that's kept secure.
That's great. That's great. Already 11 minutes in, we've hit one topic. So
Wow, we better hurry up.
I better, yeah, I'm like, hey, we don't have to hurry up here. No, hey, let's move to Zoomtopia. Just love what the company's doing with AI, just
Yes.
getting over. But they brought out some offerings that were like, that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. So this is it. This one, Zoomtopia, it was very, I love events where I get to talk to customers because you really get that other kind of dimension of like, what is it like being a customer?
The grand
It's,
purifier between
yeah.
analyst and tech vendor, right? It's the purifier.
Yes. And so I love hearing from customers. It's nice to kind of just mingle with them. And I mean, of course, I'm going to listen to the ones they put on stage, but it's the ones you meet at like the happy hour or
Yeah.
walking through the hall or going, back in the elevator to the hotel with they start to talk about it. So they made a couple of announcements, but what I think is actually kind of more important is they didn't make a ton of announcements. And I have not yet had the chance to distill all of my thoughts, like, at least not publicly. I mean, while I was there, I had many one-on-ones with the executive team, sat on a couple of panels. So I've had my feedback sessions, but I do like to break down the public insights at some point, which I will do in the next couple of days. But I met a guy there who he's a consultant and does his everything communications. And he wrote a really interesting article, and I linked it in the show notes, because basically what he said was that one of their really big branding issues, and this is I gave this feedback as well, is that everyone knows Zoom from video conferencing. And that's the thing that they're known for. It's the thing that people have experienced first and that they've experienced best. But now they have so much more. They have phones, contact centers, events platform. They have all these different things. And there was kind of this like sort of unspoken theme at Zoomtopia, which Eric, CEO, came running across the stage going Zoom, and then went Zoom, because all these O's in the Zoom now stand for like other applications within the Zoom platform.
Right.
But the one thing that this guy, Dave Tushek, he pointed out in his write-up of it was that maybe they didn't shout it loud enough. And I think this is kind of one of their issues, is that they do have so many other offerings. And the reason why they have those offerings is because their customers asked for them.
Yeah.
But unless you're a customer, you may not know so much about those other offerings. So rather than at Zoomtopia just announce a bunch of different things, they did make a couple of announcements, which we'll get to. They're really kind of honing in on what they're doing best in those things. And they're saying, we're really like solidifying what we're doing in the contact center with AI and with companion AI. We're solidifying what we're doing in events with adding these hybrid experiences. And then they showed it at the event. They had the QR code up on the screen, and people in the audience could interact with the people who were virtual. And so they have all these experiences that they're augmenting and that they're highlighting, but they're not like screaming like new, which is good, because there's a lot of kind of work, like we've talked about this before. The pandemic took roadmaps and like stretched them like this and just went like, in 3 years, companies had to ship what they or in 3 months, company had to ship what they probably would have done in 3 years.
Yeah.
So now everybody's taking their roadmap horizontally and they're filling it out. And they're saying, well, we got this wrong, or people use this more, and now we're going to infuse AI into this to make it even easier. So there's so much going on there. So they just introduced this AI companion, which we've used a lot with the summaries. I mean, their summaries are brilliant. They're so good.
So good.
I actually told the story about how I missed a meeting with you the other day and you sent me that, and I didn't have to even fill in the blanks. It was like, normally I would have to be like, I think what they're trying to say here is it's this, but the AI doesn't always get it right, but they're really good. And so they didn't go, all splashy with a bunch of new announcements. They did make, one kind of their main announcement, which is this Zoom Docs. I think Zoom Docs is going to confuse some people. It definitely confused some people. I saw like the Washington Post headline was like, Zoom introduced Google Docs rival. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah,
you got it wrong.
exactly.
Not at all. But that's not a Washington Post problem. That's a Zoom problem. If you can't explain it in a quick press release or a quick briefing and people still don't get it, you're not there yet. So I see what they're trying to do. It's really just this kind of like module workspace. It's like, it's a wiki, it's work management, it's all within the Zoom platform. And what they're doing is they're answering to what customers want, is they want to stay on the platform and collaborate. It's not like some, big complicated thing, but it's also not just a doc. What they're trying to do is get away from this 8.5, 11 piece of paper, but it sounds like they're just inserting an 8.5, 11 piece of paper inside of your platform. And that's not what anybody wants. So really, they just need to kind of like, I don't know, solidify that message, kind of figure out what they want that to be. But really, it's a workspace. And then some other Zoom AI companions with more features coming soon. But overall, it was a really good event. Small enough to have kind of some intimate time with the executives, really hear where they're coming from. They just did finalized their WorkVivo integration. WorkVivo is their employee experience management platform. I got to see it in action. Like, the Virgin Group just launched. They have an incredible experience. This thing, like, if you look at it, you might think like, oh, it's basically it's a Facebook for, and nobody likes the word intranet, but because nobody likes intranets. But this is like a completely different thing. And if you're a Zoom customer, it can live within your Zoom environment. If you're a separate WorkVivo customer, you can use it within the app. You can kind of decide how you want to use it. The way that it's branded, some companies may completely like, it's not traditionally white labeled, but basically take over on the branding. Some companies, it's completely. They started as a little startup in Ireland. By the way, they were first with the Vivo name. So Microsoft Viva, it is not a copycat of Viva. So WorkVivo has been around for like 10 years, and I think Viva's been, I don't know, 4 or 5. So yeah, it was some good information. They have a way to go on figuring out how to communicate all the things that they do. And it kind of struck me as, who does this really well is Zoho. Zoho is a lot of things to a lot of people,
Right.
and you may only use 20% of it, but you know what else they have. And you know what's there because it's right there in your platform. I only use a couple of the Zoho products, but I know exactly what else they have because it's right there. And I know kind of what the functionality is of it. But they've managed to keep that under this one Zoho brand that I think Zoho users really understand. So I think, there's a little ways to get there, but if they're not careful, the Zoom is going to be really long. So they got to figure out how to like more concisely tell that story. But
So strategically, the company is in a predicament in that video is rapidly becoming a feature rather than a product, and they recognize this. And everybody is building a platform who's anybody, right? Salesforce, Google, Microsoft, and you have to, as a public company, you have to show growth, and you can vertically integrate, you can horizontally integrate. And therefore, I think we got to Docs. I think Docs is the wrong name. I think Workspace is the right name.
yeah.
And companies like Box, they have workspaces that aren't trying to pretend to be a replacement for Google Docs or Microsoft Word.
Right.
But I understand and I feel their pain here. And I think potentially one premise is our AI is so good, you're going to want to come and use it. I am so impressed Zoom AI Companion, I can't even tell you. It's like the first B2B generative AI that has worked, aside
Yeah.
from Complete My Sentence in Gmail,
Yeah.
and it's incredible. And if I'm going to call, with you or the team or a client and on Zoom, and I can just dump a bunch of stuff into a workspace and start, typing it out, text, images, stuff like that. And I know it's not a whiteboard, but I think that's what I might use this for. So strategically, I
Right.
don't think I have a choice. To
Yeah.
grow, they have to do something. I mean, what else are they going to do? Get into devices that
Yeah.
have 30 points of margin
Right.
versus SaaS at 50 to 70.
Right.
Um, yeah, they have to do this. But
Yeah, and on the
yeah,
device side, their video and everything, it's so good that companies are building devices to work specifically with Zoom.
exactly. Zoom certified, right? Zoom Room certified, and
Yes.
and all the different certifications. And yeah, to my point, you can imagine the corporate strategy folks, or maybe it's Eric, right, with his chief product officer that I know you met with at the show.
Yes.
But I understand where they are. They have to listen. Simplifying while adding features is tough.
Yes.
Few companies have done it really well. I think Apple, but it's over a 20-year period where they, increment and things like that. And I think that's a good thing to adopt. So, hey, let's move to the next topic here. SAP SuccessFactors is something that not everybody knows that SAP is even in. So they had their event SuccessConnect. So maybe just give a little bit of background on SuccessFactors and what it is and what you learned at the event.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to call this people tech, but really Factors is a human experience management suite. So tons of different things for the kind of the HR toolkit in SuccessFactors, including some um, ESG measurements. I mean, there's quite a lot built into it, but it's pretty simple. And they've made it even more simple, which can you guess? AI.
Imagine that.
Imagine.
Imagine that. And they called it the same thing that they called the ERP version. And
Yes,
the
okay,
yeah.
and I still don't know, this is funny, so I watched, I think, maybe 4 of their different demo videos. No one ever says the word. Is it Jolie? Is it Joule?
Joule.
Joule, okay.
It's Joule just because I heard their CMO describe it as a unit of energy, which is Joule.
Joule. Oh, okay, that's good. So when they first released it and they have all these demo videos, there was nobody ever spoke the name. So I think it must have been like a last minute decision because you
Interesting.
wouldn't put these sizzle rules together without the name. But so yeah, so they've got Joule within SuccessFactors now, and really it's like like I said, it's sort of their HR toolbox, and it helps with kind of the obvious things like helping people create job descriptions and like personalized learning recommendations, but it's really this like secure and compliant framework that is not just for the employee experience, but also on the operational side of things. It's very geared towards like making things the operational efficiency of the organization. So this was one that I did virtually because it was right in the middle kind of my travel days from Las Vegas. It was
Yes.
in Las Vegas, unfortunately, so I couldn't just pop over, but I was going from Ceridian in Vegas to Zoom in San Jose. But they're smart and they did a lot of things very early in the morning. So I was able to catch some of the sessions, and I think they've got a lot of the things that are rolling out. Some of the features are rolling out this month, but a bunch of the features are early 2024. So we'll keep an eye on all of those. But they always put on a good event and they have good speakers. They had that Josh Burson, who's like the HR guru, talking, and Julia White, their CMO, is always great to listen to. Very smart, very kind of tuned into what their customers want, and it's not a lot of corporate speak of we're providing a seamless integrated experience.
I'm so sick of corporate speak when it comes to enterprise apps. It's not even funny. It's just like, can we just speak English here and
Yeah.
move forward? I think analysts perpetuate because we have to have our segments and subsegments and our 3-letter acronyms, HXM, HCM, HRM. Here we go. Hey, let's move to the final event topic of Mel's week, and that was HP Imagine 2023.
Yeah, so I was here in Palo Alto for HP Imagine, and it was a really fascinating event. Couple of device, well, you were on virtually, so you saw a lot of it. They had some things that were virtual and kind of public open, and then we had some smaller sessions where it was just the executives, and we had a device tour where we could walk around. Actually got to see like the original offices of the founders.
That's cool.
Those were really cool. I actually have some pictures. I'll post those.
The cork floors. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, pretty cool. But I think one of the things that I thought was really interesting in this, and you kind of have focused a little bit more on the devices, so I want to get your take on a lot of the device stuff. But one thing I think HP has really gotten things right on this is that they're really paying attention to how people want to work. It's not just hybrid or in office. It's just about flexibility. It's about where people want to work. And they have this really cool setup where you kind of walk in and it's like a kitchen, like you're sitting at a kitchen counter. And how would you work at the kitchen counter? And where do these devices kind of fit into your life from the kitchen counter to an executive board meeting? And all the devices are sort of really thoughtfully planned around how people are working. The portable devices, the foldable that I'll let you talk about because that's definitely your arena. But the devices that you can just pick up and move from room to room with no cords. And the way that they're just really thoughtfully designed, everything from sustainability to weight to travelability to durability, the colors, the designs, the way that it makes people feel like in terms of fatigue, and really, really thoughtfully designed. That part was so interesting. And then I'm gonna leave the printing stuff for the hot or not segment because they had a cool introduction there too. But yeah, you saw some of the devices and I thought some pretty compelling things.
Yeah. So disclosure. I worked for I worked for Compaq starting in 1995. I was a product manager for consumer desktops. So, and you probably know that HP bought Compaq, and HP had their own PC division, but at the time, Compaq was #1 market share and most profitable company in PC. I actually know some of the players that were still there, like Stacy Wolf.
Yes.
Was an engineering manager when I was a product manager there. So it's pretty cool to see what the team has done. And ironically, they came out with a very cool addition of a product that the team had worked on in 1998, which was a luggable desktop with a flat panel. And I have to tell you, I can't, again, n=1 or n=10 doesn't necessarily mean, market success. But I had a lot of people say, wow, that is really innovative. That is really something that's new. This is really cool. Essentially, it's a large flat panel desktop that you pick it up and, the feet get sucked up into the base, which is cool. And there's a handle on the top, and you can protect the display by putting it's probably a manufactured cloth over it, but it has room for the handle to lift up. And I just think I applaud HP for swinging for the fences with innovation, and I think Lenovo does a pretty good job, but sometimes I think their consumer centric focus is on Asia, and I think HP's is primarily on the West, and I think they do a really good job doing it. The second thing that I thought that was interesting, and they had announced this previously, but they gave some more details and let people play with a 17-inch foldable, and you can use it 3 different ways. You can use it with a keyboard where it's 17-inch out. You can use it as a notebook where part of the display you can use as a keyboard, or you can snap on a keyboard that's magnetic, and then use half of the 17-inch as your display. But I think we're getting closer and closer to where these foldable devices become a little bit more commonplace, and they become a lot more easy to use. And I do think it's a slow boil. I think things like the new Spectre Fold, Samsung Galaxy Fold will become more mainstream as costs go down. This is a $5,000 product,
Yeah.
so it's not going to be for everybody. But I like what they did, though, in terms of instead of trying to sell this display and then have you, oh, I need a keyboard. Let's go. And then I need to set this up. Oh, what I need is a docking station to be able to connect this thing to other displays. It comes in the box with it.
Yeah.
So, and it's fully set up. I mean, you don't have to set up. I mean, how many of these Windows devices have you bought? Well, I think you're probably more of a Mac person, so maybe none.
I've,
But
I've had in the past. Yeah.
anybody who set this stuff up, you have to set up Bluetooth, and what they did is they made this more of an Apple-like experience where they integrated these devices, and I think that's just a positive.
Mm-hmm.
I am not as impressed as I nearly have been to get my hands on one of these, but this is an absolute I want it. And I hope HP doesn't watch this video, because I'll probably buy one if they don't let me use one. It's $5,000, but man, that thing looks
It's
sexy.
It's really beautiful, and it's really impressive how flat and nice the screen looks, because you think like it would have some sort of, not a seam, but where you can kind of see where it's folded. I think some of the Samsung devices, you kind of see that little, it's like the tiniest little bit of like a crinkle. This thing is just like flat. I mean, it's really beautiful. And the way it's designed so that it holds the keyboard. So you're talking about Stacy Wolf, he's the head of design. All of the things that he talked us through with just the way that, not just how like the keyboard is tucked away, or
Yeah.
the pen is like magnetically applied, but then how they put the battery in so that the weight is equal on both sides, but it's really lightweight, so that it's not going to topple over because it only has the battery on one side or the other. So it really is it's a really nice device. They also showed some HP products so I kind of got like a double up of HP, or sorry, not HP, Poly, of Poly devices, because Poly introduced a couple of new like room bundles for Zoom that they had at Zoomtopia, and then they were also there yesterday. Another thing, like you were saying, with pairing, a lot of the Poly headsets just automatically pair to these new devices. Those I don't find the Poly setup to be very hard. It's like, you scan a QR code and it pairs pretty easily. But if you just have to open it up and it's paired, I mean, that's a no-brainer. Make that easy for people. But yeah, it was a good event. There was a lot of information. There was a lot of press there, so it was a little bit of lots of things coming from different directions, and people filming their videos for them to post online and everything. But it was a good chance to just have some hands-on time with that, because, like you said, I'm not sure they're going to send me one anytime soon. I mean,
I'll tell you what, we're in the same city here. If they send me one, I'll give
okay.
you some hands-on time to get your
Play
feedback
around
on
with
it.
it.
And
I
one
did
thing,
meet with Alex Cho, who said to say hello to you.
gosh, Alex is such a good guy. He's just such a good guy, and he's so empathetic. And I think that's one of the things that makes him such a good product person out there. And
Yeah.
by the way, before we move on to printing, I did want to hit one of their services that I have been talking about for 5 years, and this was HP Managed Collaboration Services. Not that I've talked about their service, but the need for this that I think upends a lot of the older companies out there that are in these rooms. So kind of a one-stop shop if you're a business, where you can essentially say, give me room equipment as a service, and you get immediate tech support from the manufacturer. You're paying for use. You're not necessarily paying for the hardware, and then with a service fee on top of it. So a lot of elements to simplify. And I think what they're trying to do here is really address the, how do we get this thing connected in a room? Which, when it's PC to PC, it's not an issue, right? We do it 10 times a day. But when it's room to PC or PC to room, it seems to be some big issue, right? And this is one of the problems we're trying to solve. The only thing I don't fully understand is how this integrates with the channel. But again, a lot of research that I need to do on this to fully get underneath that. So let's move to the final topic, and that is hot or not HP all-in-one printing solution. What's going on here?
The all-in printing solution. So this was introduced or talked about yesterday. It's similar to what they've done, like with their ink subscriptions, ink and paper. Well, now they're doing printer, ink and paper. And I kind of went into this going, well, I'm not really going to be interested in the printing. It's just not part of what I cover. It's not, really my swim lane.
Right.
But here's where I find this really interesting is with hybrid work, I now share a printer with my kids. I now have a thing where I've got kids who are printing, 57 pages of a document because they don't like the color of it, or they've got to add this or change that. And then I go to print something for a presentation and I'm out of ink or I'm out of paper. And I'm like, this isn't working, right? But I don't want to necessarily have two printers in a house. So when you've got something that's like completely managed, and I may want to upgrade my printer because now we've got 4 or 5 people in the house using it. So rather than just have like this ink and paper subscription, it's an all-in solution.
Yeah.
And I didn't get an exact date on when. Well, they didn't say an exact date on when it's going to be launching, but I think it's going to be early next year. And I think this is a really compelling, kind of like what you're talking about. These managed rooms. It's like I don't necessarily want to own all this equipment and have to be responsible for like when does it need this and when should I upgrade, or when am I out of ink, and that's all managed for you. And I did speak to one of their product managers in print last night, and what she told me is that convenience trumps everything. And this isn't a very expensive service, but it may be, they jokingly say like, from the cost of a latte kind of thing. But when they did testing, and they do a lot of testing, this is something about HP and Poly that you can really appreciate, is the amount of testing that they do and the number of customers they talk to. People just want convenience. They want it to work and they want it to be there when they need it. And so I think this is just a really great solution. Not something I thought I'd ever be excited about, let's be honest, but I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The whole view of print is we're not printing until we print, right? And, at home, when your consumer projects, kids projects, we're still doing that. And sometimes from a market perspective, we forget that countries are in different places. And there are some countries that printing is increasing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is printing also extends to 3D print with metals and plastics. But most of the pop-up stores, when you see the art that's used, those are printed. Mm-hmm. When you look at some of the big promotions that consumer packaged goods companies use, those are printed. And most of the time it's printed on an HP industrial printer. We've had a HP printer, one of their easy to use ones from, it looks nice. It's actually in the living room, which is crazy. But it looks really nice. And my wife and I are printing something probably once a week, and we're very digital people, right? Mm-hmm. Phones, tablets, and PCs. But what HP is doing, you mentioned this, is simplicity, where it's instant ink, setup that works. And it wouldn't be crazy a day that using generative AI, everybody could set up a printer, like always. It would always print. It would find a way to print. Mm-hmm. But for those of you who want to know more about printers, I urge you to look at all the ways that you can do this. But it's great stuff. Yeah, all-in-ones are a big deal. And it's all about simplicity and space saving. And HP is also doing a lot to make their ink better for the environment.
Yes.
Um, having paper that is better for the environment. But you can imagine what a tough spot you're in when it's like, hey, I'm for the environment, but I create a lot of paper waste that,
Yeah.
like how do you deal with it? But I think HP deals with it pretty well. They get ahead of it in
Yeah.
terms of the messaging. By the way, just a side note, I was kind of fascinated that when Enrique Lores went through um, the three trends, right? Flexibility, AI impact, and trust is 3 years ago, sustainability was on that. But I think, you having the degree in sustainability, the extra degree, is it Yale?
Yes, it's Yale.
Yeah, you
It's great.
probably discussed and can see the changing ways that companies are talking about
Yes.
the environment out
Yeah.
there, and it's become a very polarizing issue. And while HP didn't run away with it because trust was the value, talked about the environment, the new business models, new materials, they didn't lead with it.
Right.
Okay, like they had before, and I just find that as just a milestone on the changing dialogue of this. And I don't know, you had a lot of things going on, but it'd be interesting to get your take time on sometime on the Hot Desk podcast, because you do cover sustainability and
Yes.
some other things. I would love to get your take on it.
I think that is a great topic to discuss another time when we've got some time, because there is a change in that where people are pulling back from talking about it, but they're talking about it in different ways. And there are reasons for that. There's, some disclosures on lobbying and things that could really catch people. If people can't just go out and claim we're green anymore,
Yeah,
because they're going to get caught greenwashing if they're,
yeah.
and I think HP has done a really great job with their sustainability efforts. And I think the way that they weaved it in yesterday was a lot about how they work sustainability into design. And we'll talk about that more because we're already way over
Oh my
time.
gosh, this is the longest Hot Desk podcast ever.
I know, and we
Thank you
didn't
for
even get
coming
to
in.
everything.
I know it's crazy, but no, I just want to thank everybody for coming in here. We hit Ceridian, Zoom, SAP, HP, and everything in between. And this was just Mel's life for a week. So
This is just
imagine how exciting it is in her life. And she hasn't even made it back home yet. But safe travels.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for everybody who's tuning in. Tune in every 2 weeks on the Hot Desk podcast. Thank you so much.